Welcome to today's lesson, where we're going to dive deep into the world of Vue.js components and tools. Specifically, we'll focus on leveraging Vue.js dev tools to inspect and manipulate your components in real time while they run in the browser. This is a critical skill for any Vue developer. Ensuring your app behaves as expected makes debugging a whole lot easier. So far, we've learned how to create our first Vue.js application, set up the development environment, and launch the app. We've explored the project structure, modified components, introduced interactivity with Vue's data model, and created reusable components. Additionally, we implemented Vuex for state management, which enables us to manage data across components effectively. Lastly, we added styling to enhance the user experience, laying the groundwork for building more complex applications in the future. Now, we'll cover how to utilize Vue.js dev tools effectively and enhance your development process through its features. Vue.js DevTools is a powerful browser extension that not only aids developers in inspecting their Vue applications, but also lets you manipulate components on the fly. Whether you're trying to see a component state or its props, DevTools provides a user-friendly interface to visualize what's happening under the hood. To kick things off, let's make sure you have the Vue.js DevTools installed in your browser. If you're using Chrome, head over to the Chrome Web Store, search for Vue.js DevTools, and click the Install button. For Firefox users, the process is similar. Just find it on the Firefox add-ons page. The displayed figure is a grouped bar chart titled Leveraging Vue.js Components and Tools that compares two metrics, importance level and ease of use, across 5 Vue-related features: Vuex, single file components, Vue Dev Tools, Composition API, and community support. Each feature has 2 adjacent bars with numeric labels on top, showing ratings out of 100. Now, if we take a closer look, some key patterns really jump out. Interestingly, every feature's importance rating is consistently around 5 points higher than its ease of use rating. This tells us that developers generally see these features as slightly more critical than they find them easy to use. For instance, Vue DevTools really stands out. It boasts the highest ratings for both importance at 90 and ease of use at 90. This clearly signals that it's not only viewed as essential, but is also quite accessible. Following closely is Vuex, with strong scores of 90 for importance and 85 for ease of use. This highlights the crucial role state management plays in Vue applications alongside its practical usability. Now, when we move to single-file components and the Composition API, we see mid-high scores. Importance is at 80 and 80, while ease of use comes in at 80 and 75, respectively. This suggests that although these features are valued, they may require a bit more familiarity to use comfortably. On the other hand, community support sits at the lowest on both scales, 70 for importance and 65 for ease. This implies that while community resources can be helpful, they're perceived as less critical or perhaps not as straightforward to leverage compared to the core tools and APIs. So, from these values, we can really conclude that by focusing your efforts on mastering Vue DevTools and Vuex, you'll probably experience the most immediate benefits. However, it's also important to recognize this slight but consistent usability gap across features that could be addressed through improved documentation or better tooling ergonomics. Now, let's implement a new component called usercard.view, which will allow us to display user information and interact with some data. In this component, we begin by defining a template section that structures our HTML. It includes a container for the user's name and email, along with a button that toggles their active status based on a Boolean property. This interaction is achieved using a method titled toggleActive, which, when invoked, flips the user's active state. Pretty neat, right? Next, we move on to the script section. This is where the essential aspects of our logic reside. Here, we declare a prop named user, ensuring that it receives an object with user data, which is essential for the component to function correctly. The toggle active method is defined within our component's methods, enabling us to manipulate the user's active status directly, showcasing just how dynamic and responsive components can be to user actions. Awesome stuff! Lastly, we add a scoped style section to enhance the component's appearance. This includes basic styling, providing visual separation and structure that make our user card both functional and visually appealing within the application. And there you have it, simple yet effective. Now, let's implement the user card component in your main app.vue file. First, we need to import the user card component at the top of the script section, which allows us to use it throughout this file. This is essential for making our component reusable in the application. Next, we will define our components list, ensuring that user card is available for us to use. In the data function, we will create some initial sample user data as an array of objects, where each object represents a user with properties such as name, email, and active status. This setup enables us to dynamically display user information. Then, we will include the user card component within the template section of our app.vue file. By using Vue's v-for directive, we can iterate through our users array. Each user will be passed down as a prop to the user card, identified by a unique key based on their email. This approach provides a clean and organized way to display multiple user cards in the UI. With this setup complete, we can run the application to see our user list displayed and inspect its behavior through Vue DevTools. When you click the View tab, you'll see a tree structure representing all the components in your application, the app component at the root and the user card components nested underneath it. When you select a user card component, it shows you its associated data, props, computed properties, and methods. But wait, the fun part comes when we check out the State section of DevTools. In the State section, you'll find the initial state of the user prop. You can directly edit the name, email, and even the active properties right from this panel. This is incredibly handy for testing without having to change code and refresh. Just tweak the values and see immediate changes reflected in your app. How cool is that? Next, we will set up our Vuex store to manage user data globally within our application. We'll begin by importing the Create Store function from Vuex. This is crucial for creating our store. Inside the store, we define the state function, which returns an object containing a user's array. This array is where we'll hold user objects, each with essential attributes like name, email, and active status. Now, let's take a moment to write a mutation named toggle user active. This handy function will let us toggle a user's active status based on their email. It works by locating a user within the user's array and flipping their active property if they're found. By encapsulating this functionality within a mutation, we can ensure that we have predictable state changes, which is something Vuex tracks beautifully. This makes debugging a whole lot easier. Once the store is created, we'll export it for use within our Vue components. This integration of Vuex simplifies state management. You see, all components can now access shared user data and interact with it consistently. With this setup, we're truly laying the groundwork to harness Vuex's power in our usercard.vue component, enabling dynamic interaction with our application state. Now, let's modify the usercard.vue component to integrate Vuex for state management and enhance our application's interactivity. First, we're going to import the Vuex helpers, map state, and map mutations, which will really help us smoothly integrate the Vuex store state and mutations directly into our component. Next, we'll define a prop named user email, which is key for identifying the specific user whose active status we want to toggle. In the computed properties, we'll use map state to connect the user state from Vuex, making the user data readily accessible inside our component. Here, we also create a user computed property that searches for the user matching the email prop we passed in. Then, in the methods section, we'll integrate the toggle user active mutation from Vuex. This lets our component trigger changes in the user's active state directly in the store. The toggle active method is where the action happens. It calls the mutation with the user's email, allowing Vuex to handle that state change seamlessly. Now, whenever the toggle button is clicked, the user's active status will be modified within the Vuex store, ensuring our application state remains consistent across all parts. When you run the application now, open the Vue DevTools and navigate to the Vuex tab. You'll see your Vuex state displayed right there. Now, what's even more interesting is when you click through the user card components, each one will display its respective user data. When you toggle the active state via the button, it commits that change to the Vuex store. And guess what? You'll see it updating in real time in the DevTools. But there's more. There's an additional feature in DevTools that's pretty exciting: time travel debugging. What this means is you can actually go back and inspect previous states of your Vuex store after certain mutations have occurred. This is a game changer when it comes to debugging complex applications. All right, so now you've got a solid understanding of how to use Vue.js DevTools to inspect and manipulate your components, along with your Vuex state. This is a crucial skill for any Vue developer, and trust me, it really streamlines the coding and debugging process. Now, besides just checking out your state and props and tweaking values on the fly, did you know DevTools can also give you some valuable performance insights? When you switch over to the Performance tab, you can analyze component re-renders and spot those pesky performance bottlenecks. This is super important, especially as your application grows, to make sure it stays responsive. Now, you might be thinking, can we also integrate testing into this workflow? And the answer is a resounding yes. While DevTools is fantastic for real-time interactions and inspections, having a robust set of unit tests on hand ensures your components behave just as you expect, even when you make changes. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, let's add testing to our user card component using Jest and Vue test utils. First, we need to install the necessary testing packages. These tools will allow us to write and run tests for our Vue components effectively. Next, we'll create a test file specifically for the usercard.vue component. Here, our main focus will be ensuring that the toggle functionality is working as it should. To do this, we'll shallow mount the usercard component using a sample user object that we define. This object will include the user's name, email, and active state. Shallow mounting is key because it tests the component in isolation, making sure it behaves as expected without rendering any child components. Now, let's dive into simulating user interaction. We'll trigger a click event on the button within the user card. After that, we'll write an expectation to check if the user's active state in the Vuex store has been updated correctly to false. This automation of checks through tests is immensely helpful. It allows us to catch any potential issues during development, ensuring our application remains robust as we tweak things going forward. As we wrap up this lesson, remember that leveraging Vue.js components and tools is essential for delivering a smooth, efficient user experience. By utilizing Vue.js DevTools, you gain insights into your application's behavior, making it easier to debug and enhance usability. It's like having a magical lens that lets you peer into the inner workings of your application. Always make it a habit to keep an eye on your state and components through DevTools. Now, try to embrace the combination of real-time inspection, Vuex state management, performance checks, and automated testing to take your Vue.js skills to the next level. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed learning about leveraging Vue.js components and tools. Keep experimenting, stay curious, and happy coding.